Baby, he's just a friend from work. I would never cheat on you. He was just saying hello. You're the only one for me, bae. Why are you looking at me like that? Bae, I'm sorry. Bae, what did I do wrong? Bae, say something.
Welcome back to Triple C's podcast. I'm Dee, and today we're diving into a heavy topic, domestic violence awareness. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we wanted to speak on the importance of knowing the signs, healthy versus unhealthy relationships, and how you can support yourself or a loved one who is going through some domestic violence. All resources during this episode are available at our school and locally, so let's go ahead and get into this discussion. Joining me today is Tay, Holy Rose, and Kadian. And my first question for you all is, have you ever experienced domestic violence yourself, or do you know anyone that has experienced domestic violence, someone close to you, like a family or friend?
I have not experienced domestic violence. I do know some family members who have.
I have not experienced domestic violence, but I do have a very close family member who has.
I myself have not experienced domestic violence, but I do know a family member as well who has.
All right, so we have 3 members. Everyone up here has known someone that's gone through domestic violence. And if you don't know anyone, you know someone now, because I actually went through a domestic violence relationship before. So let's first start talking about healthy and unhealthy relationships. So can you guys give me an example of what you would think a healthy relationship has?
I think communication is really important. If they're open and willing to hear each other out and actually understand what one's saying.
Right. I also think trust and, like you said, communication is also healthy, because a lot of people without any trust, what is there to trust? And it just shows how important you take each other seriously, that you have that type of faith in each other, together or not.
We're going to kind of piggyback off what Rose said and say understanding, because in a relationship, you kind of have to know who your person is that you are dealing with and that you're in a relationship with. You kind of have to know who they truly are.
And I think sometimes we don't always know who people truly are. Like, there can be like a facade going on. Typically in domestic violence relationships, they don't start off like that. They start off very well. Sometimes you see a lot of love bombing, and you guys know what love bombing is? Yeah. So if you don't know what love bombing is when it sounds exactly how it sounds. It's when you bomb or bombard somebody with affection that you had just met in a very close amount of time. So, not saying that happens in every domestic relationship, but that is one of the warning signs that we are told to look out for. Another thing that you should look out for in an unhealthy relationship is when your partner is preventing you or discouraging you from hanging out with someone that is not them. So when that communication kind of starts to get toxic and you're being told that the only person that you can communicate to is your partner, that's probably when you should start either talking to someone like a counselor. We have counselors here at NSU in the counseling center right at the student services building, or even talking to a friend that's close to you. So if you're in any orgs, like we're in CCC, you guys know if you have any issues that you can definitely come talk to me. You can talk to your president Gia, or you can talk to any other of the members here. So is there any resources that you guys know of that you want to share with our students, our faculty, anyone that is here at NSU or even in Norfolk?
One of our resources will be to go to the counseling office down in the student center down by the career services. They would hear you out. Any problem situations that you have, it's very confidential between you and your counselor. I actually have gone to counseling just to, get my mental right, and just to any stress, just talk it out. Or any close family relative that you trust dearly that wouldn't expose any of your deepest discussions.
I was going to say the exact same thing, the counseling center, and if one counselor may not be the best fit for you, you can definitely find another one and find the one that works best for you, that will actually support you in a way that you need to be supported.
I personally was going to recommend campus police department. You know, if things get too far, things go too far within that relationship, and you need to, like, you know, take it to that next level, you can always go to them, file some type of report, and then, you know, they'll handle it from there.
And we're gonna talk about campus police a little bit more because there is an app that everyone should have downloaded on their phones. If you go here at NSU, it's called NSU Safe. We're gonna talk about that a little bit more at the end. So we did ask our audience to send us in some questions that they would like to have answered. So we're gonna dive into those real quick. How do you address wanting love so badly that you will put up with abusive behaviors that aren't physical? Maybe you guys can answer that question, because I think a lot of people forget that domestic violence is not just a physical thing, but it can also be mental, it can also be emotional and verbal. So do you guys want to answer that before I give my 2 cents?
I can say that the person closest to me was in a situation, and she was in the mindset where she just wanted to settle down, and she was getting older and she really just wanted to settle down and get married. And I feel like there is no rush for that. The right person will find you. And I think just actually enjoying being single, and there is such a thing as just like, it's not too much to ask, and you're not asking for too much if you choose to, like, you don't deserve to settle. Basically, you don't deserve to settle. You are deserving of love, of support in any and every way possible, and allowing someone to make you feel less than, no one ever deserves that.
To actually piggyback off what you said, everybody is deserving of love. It's not about it's not about if you're the problem or he or she's the problem. It's more so if you're worthy of who you are, who you know who you are. It is also a mental thing, you know. If you know that, let's say, you feel like you're not being heard or seen, I feel like that's a clear sign that, you know, it's not, you know, meant to be. Also, like we said, going back to, you know, resources, you know, always talk to somebody to, like, confide in, to make sure, like, you know, you're not going crazy in some situations. But what you said, yes, I do strongly agree.
I think even to piggyback off of that, with thinking that, oh, you're not good enough or you didn't put forth much effort, you can be putting in all the effort and the person just isn't. And
It's like it's one-sided.
It could become one-sided, like you are giving your whole heart into it and the other person isn't. And sometimes that makes people feel as though they're inadequate or they're less than, when it's not. It's just a matter of fact of that person isn't willing to meet you halfway, or isn't willing to even at least try to put in effort. So don't feel like you have to settle or you have to strain yourself for that person if they're not willing to do it.
And I strongly believe, do not change yourself for that person. That's the number one thing, because if you change yourself for that one person and it doesn't work out, you end up losing yourself. And that's one of the biggest things that people go through, and then they go through like an identity crisis, and they just don't feel like nobody wants them, when truthfully, like, somebody's in your corner the whole time, or standing right in front of you, actually, at that. So
I also, piggybacking off of that, it has to do with, like, mental and really, like, where you're at in life, because my relative, they were going through a very tough time mentally in their life. You know, they were going through some personal things, so, you know, they ended up getting in that relationship. And then once I found out what was going on, I was talking to them and whatnot, you know, letting them know that I was there for them, because when you go through tough times in life, you end up going down the wrong path, and a relationship such as that is a wrong path you go down when you're going through tough times. But since then, they have gotten rid of that person. They have elevated. They know their self-worth now. They realize their self-worth, and I'm proud of them for that.
Good, thanks. So like we said, domestic violence is not always physical. Sometimes it is mental, it can be emotional or verbal. And one thing to look out for when you're not completely sure whether or not you're being mentally or emotionally abused is to look out for when, like we said earlier, if you are being isolated from anyone that's not your partner, if you are constantly being degraded by your partner, or even if your partner is talking about your family. I think a lot of people don't realize that it starts when they start talking and acting a certain way around people that are around you. And then eventually it comes back to you. So let's jump into another question. I like this one is how to navigate moving on once you're out of a relationship that you didn't realize was abusive until after you got out of it. And again, they wanted to know what are major warning signs people should look for. So I will be honest, I did not properly navigate out of my abusive relationship when I first got out of it. I just navigated into a different one that I thought looked healthier than that previous one. And it wasn't healthier. So like what Holy Rose said, just enjoy being single. Just be single. Find yourself. Just enjoy being single. Find yourself. And you don't have to rush into another relationship. I know, especially in this society, in this day and age, we try to make it seem like you're supposed to be in a relationship. You have to be in a relationship that you're supposed to always compromise. But depending on what that compromise is, it might end up being more detrimental to you than it is a benefit of being in a relationship. So is there any warning signs that you guys saw? I know my family didn't know. They're probably going to find out after this goes live. Sorry, y'all. But were there any signs that you guys saw in your relatives that no one else probably saw? Or how did it even come about? How did you guys find out that your relatives were in these domestic violence relationships?
I found it I feel like maybe from like the beginning, because the relationship moved entirely too fast. And I'm just like, what do you, like, don't move. Like, you don't even know this person. You never met this person because they were long distance. And it just moved tremendously too fast. And she was starting to settle for this person. And with that, she was starting to kind of lose herself or just accept things that me and her have talked about and said that we would never accept in any type of relationship. And I think when you start to notice those signs, and especially when they start, again, back to what Dee said, when they start speaking negatively about the people that you're closest with, whether it be your friends or your family, that's when it's like a big indication, especially if you're someone who is huge on family or just the people closest to you. I think that's a huge indication.
One of the biggest signs that I've seen was the constant arguing, even for like little situations. It was just the getting in your face and just the yelling in any situation, whether it's like a get together or a birthday party or just chilling outside. It was just a constant arguing, and later down the line, it starts to getting physical, where it's like they start shoving and pointing, and even in situations in like in front of little kids, and it's like it was just not a healthy environment, because when they got together in a room, the whole room just got very, very depleted, very cautious of what these two couples are gonna start arguing about next. So that was one of the signs.
With me, they kind of said it and mentioned it subliminally. Now, with this relative, I'm able to read them very well. So when they said it subliminally, I immediately like clocked in and was like, did they put hands on you? And it was just like, I was just kind of like up in emotion a little bit, because this particular relative I care about a lot. So it was also kind of shocking that they didn't leave right then and there, especially when I further encouraged them. But they eventually did leave and got themselves together.
I love that they left. For me, I had a support system, and also luckily for me, I got away from my abuser. I got hundreds of miles away from one abuser, and then the other one also got away from them. So that's not always the case for everybody. This is also why we are sharing these resources with you guys. But I want to ask you guys, how did you support your family members when they got out of those toxic relationships and when they were transitioning back into being the family member that you once knew?
One of the ways I was able to help support was actually just being able to read the room. Like, whenever I felt like there was an argument that was about to come up to play, I just was able to make sure I heard both sides, got what their solution was, so like the situation won't come again. But that was in both in person, but privately, the one who was actually the victim, I pulled her to a side to make sure that she is seen, heard, understood, make sure that physically she was okay, and any resources like, to calm herself down with water or food or anything to ease her mind down with stress, and make sure like other people wasn't too aware of her situation, but like people was aware to make sure like if it escalates, we were able to take action and just make sure it just wouldn't happen ever again.
I would say for me, it was difficult because the person ended up, my loved one ended up moving with this person to another state, so I couldn't be in such close proximity to this person, because this specific person, I would drop everything to go be there for her. Anyone within our family would have. With the whole thing, I just made sure that my phone was always on for her. Whether my phone was on Do Not Disturb, she was always on bypass for that. I always made sure not to. I'm very upfront with her. We can be very blunt, but at times I knew that I just needed to be a listening ear for her, and also be just honest, but in the gentlest way where it doesn't make her feel ashamed. And I think the biggest thing that helped me was I prayed, because I knew that there was nothing that I could physically do except pray for her behalf, pray that she comes to God and that she starts rebuilding her relationship with God. And I thank God that she is out of that situation and she is just simply focusing on her relationship with God and just learning to love herself. But even though she's left that situation, we still have our weekly calls and check in on each other. So
with me, it was just plain and simple. I just talk to him every day, just like get on FaceTime, talk to him, we'll just talk about like random conversations to, make each other feel good, make each other feel better. They need to, let out their emotions, voice themselves and whatnot. I'm here. Even if we're just like on the phone or on FaceTime, not saying anything, I felt like that type of presence, that like someone is there for you, like in any way, shape, or form, whether it's physically or virtually. Like I felt that like was, just enough to, help them out and get them by and whatnot. Let them know that you always have somebody to resort to when times get tough.
All right, thank you guys for that. So again, as someone that has been through domestic violence, everything they said is exactly what you should do if you are trying to support someone going through domestic violence. And if you need any more resources for national resources, you can go online to www.nrcdv.org. This is the National Resource Center on Domestic Violence, and they are able to not only give you resources on how to combat domestic violence, but also legal help as well. So we wanted to thank you all for watching. I am your host, Dee, and this was Triple C's podcast on domestic violence awareness.